Take me into your loving arms. Kiss me under the light of 1,000 stars. Place your head on my beating heart. I'm thinking out loud. Maybe we found love right where we are.
It was another day, with the only thing on my mind being Iwaoi-chan. I couldn't wait to see him, but was dreading the fact I'd have to hang around his friends. I woke up early so I could buy myself something to eat. There was only one store open near the area. I could understand why though, no one wanted to be working at 6 in the morning. I opened the door to the small diner and entered. I'd only been here once before so I was still uncomfortable and uneasy here. My first time around. The people were nice though. Welcome. A middle-aged woman greeted me. She wasn't here last time. I assume she works during mornings? Hi. I replied, taking a seat on a stool in front of the counter. What can I get for ya? She asked in a heavy southern accent. I looked at the large menu hung up on the wall behind the counter. I'll have a slice of apple pie and a glass of water, thanks. I ordered, speaking slowly to make sure I didn't order the wrong thing. All right, coming up. She yelled, turning around to fulfill my order. While she was doing so I turned around to admire the cozy-looking diner. It has a very dark orange palette to it. The small green plants really brought the room to life though. It was like being in a forest while being at home. I don't know if that makes sense, it's just the best way I can describe it. You know, we could use a few more hands round here. She informed me while placing my order next to me. I looked up at her questioningly. We got a few open spots if you're looking for a job, she said, smiling my way. I stayed silent a while thinking it over. I could really use a job now that I think about it. I could pay for my meals without using my savings, and just maybe I could start getting real food. I was beginning to tire of junk food. I know it isn't healthy eating the way I do, but I didn't have much of an option. I'd love a job, but I'd have to think about it. I replied, giving her a thankful smile. Sure, no prob. Just don't take too long now. You don't want someone snatching the job. She spoke jokingly. Another smile crossed my face before eating pie. After eating breakfast I hurried to the bus stop, not wanting to miss the bus. I made it to school and headed off to my locker. I got my stuff and headed to homeroom, then my first class. Nothing interesting happened the whole time. During my second class there were some kids causing trouble for the teacher. This happens often. I'd expect her to quit any day now. When lunch break finally arrived I made my way through the halls, and to the cafeteria. I hadn't seen Iwaoi-chan or his group yet, and I ended up being spotted by my old friends. Hey, got any of that cash? One of them chuckled, making their way to my side. None for you, I replied with a dull expression. It really seemed to tick him off. If you know what's good for. He began his reply before being interrupted. Is there a problem here? Someone asked, closing in on us. I turned to see who this familiar voice belonged to. To my surprise it was Elaine. She walked up to us, glancing back and forth. Get lost, Elaine. One of the guys hissed. Trust me, you don't want to take that tone with me. You know what I'm capable of. She fired back in a snooty way. One of the guys looked extremely intimidated while the others just glared at her. TSK, let's go. One of them surrendered, walking away with the other following behind soon enough. Thanks for that, I said, looking at the brunette beauty. No problem, she replied simply. Where's Iwaizumi? I asked her since his friends are usually glued to him like a kindergarten art project. You two seem to get along really well. What happened on that trip? she asked, narrowing her eyes. I felt the heat crawling to my face. I don't know where he is, probably heading here now though. She finally answered, eating what looked like apple sticks. I thought you guys were always together? Well, we usually are, but I came to see you. I pointed to myself, mouthing the word me. Yes, you seem like a pretty cool guy and I want to get to know you, she said, smiling at me. I was taken by surprise. I didn't think anyone would have thought of me that way. Thanks, I think, I mumbled out, blushing. Hopefully she doesn't have any romantic feelings for me, 'cause I don't know how I would tell her that I'm gay. I don't want that getting around school, 'cause I know it would cause me unnecessary trouble. I bought my lunch and sat down at our table, or there's rather, with her following behind. I got an apple, milk, and a tuna sandwich. I think she just got a chocolate pudding cup and some apple sticks. It was an odd lunch but it did look pretty delicious. So what are your hobbies? She asked, starting a conversation. I read. That's pretty much it. I shrugged a little. Come on, there has to be more. She squinted and looked into my eyes. Well. I trail off trying to think of something else I do besides reading. I walk? I hesitantly add. Oh come on. Are you serious? She yells and sighs, making me crack a smile. Gosh, you're boring. She pouted. Is this where she starts ignoring me? Is she just going to forget about me since I'm so boring? I'd assume so. You and I are going to do something fun later, she said in a demanding tone. I was honestly shocked. She still wanted to hang out with me even though I'm so bland. Are you sure? I asked, raising a brow. Am I sure? Boy, you better be ready, she retorted. That was when Iwaoi-chan and the rest of his group appeared. They looked surprised to see us already at the table. Oi koa, Iwaoi-chan called, throwing up a wave. A smile parted my lips at his presence. No greeting for me? She scoffed, flinging her head in his direction. Con, we just saw each other this morning. Iwaoi-chan replied to her question with a smile. They made it to the table after getting their lunch. Oikoa and I are going to hang out after school today, she told Iwaoi-chan. He looked up from his tray, surprised. Wow, you two have already become good friends. He chuckled, turning his bright gaze to me. I felt like I was sitting under the sun with his warm smile. My heart melted into a puddle in my chest. Well, that really depends on how the day goes. She glared at me jokingly and I threw my hands in the air in submission. Somehow I felt myself relaxed around her. I felt like I could let my wall down a little. It happened without me even noticing it. I guess hanging around Iwaoi-chan all this time loosened me up. It seemed as if school passed quicker than normal, even though I was excited for it to end. It's usually the other way around. To be honest, I was terrified of hanging out with someone other than Iwaoi-chan, but Elaine comes off as very friendly and genuine, so I'd give her a chance before turning her away. I met Elaine in the school parking lot. She jumped and waved when she saw me coming over. When you told me to meet you in the parking lot, I didn't expect you to be driving as well, I said in awe as I scanned her car. It's my mom's. She lets me take it out if she doesn't need it, she explained nonchalantly, presenting the car while flicking her hands back and forth. It looks nice, I compliment, making my way to her side. You ready to head out? She asks, popping the driver door open. Yeah, I replied, getting in the passenger side. Did you want to drive? I can tell you where to go, she asked once we were in the car. No. I don't have a permit or license, so I probably shouldn't be behind the wheel. I force a laugh. I'm actually very sad I haven't been able to get one. My life is so messed up that it just isn't even a possibility. I'd have to wait until I move out or something. In the meantime, I guess I'd probably just have to walk or something. I see. Yeah, I wouldn't want to end up in a ditch or anything, she teased. That hurt. I just pouted at her. Soon enough we were off. Elaine turned on the radio and started singing along. I smiled at her. She seemed so carefree and cool. If only I could open myself up like that again. I'm just too afraid of getting hurt. I'm pathetic, I'm weak, but that isn't something I can easily change. When she caught my eyes on her, she smiled and continued singing. Her voice wasn't bad, to be honest. I know she's definitely better than me. So, where are we going? I ask, noticing we've been driving towards the town. The arcade. She replies, rocking her head to the music. I raised a brow. You're into games? Yeah, why? She asked, narrowing her eyes at me. It's just. I didn't take you for much of a gamer. Well, no one would take you for a bookworm. Well, at least I don't think so. She studied me before turning her eyes back to the road. Several songs later we arrived at our destination. She pulled into the curb near a few other cars. We got out, being engulfed in the unique town air and the barely present sun. We entered the arcade through the large clear glass doors. This arcade looked really modern and up to date. There were a lot of expensive looking things around. With that said, the prices were relatively low. As I was offering to pay, she turned me down. Let's put gender roles aside, shall we? She replied, a little irritated. I probably would have offered to pay whether she was male or female, but I didn't say that out loud. I'm the one who invited you out today, so I'm not going to let you pay for a thing. She added before going up to the counter to pay for tickets. She gave me half and we were off to the first machine. I have to warn you, I suck at games. I warned as we sat down on fake motorcycles. I guess I'll be winning today. She hopped happily in her seat. I don't know how she did it. I was hardly able to keep myself up on this thing. We began our virtual race and just as I expected, I sucked. She was laughing at how terrible I was throughout the whole race. I was pretty red-faced with embarrassment, but moreover I was happy that she was having fun, and to my surprise I ended up having a lot of fun with the other games we played. We ran around the building going between games and laughing our butts off. We played whack-a-mole, basketball, a couple rhythm games, a hunting game and several others. By the time we exited the arcade we were out of breath. I had a lot of fun. I breathed out, looking at her through my one-parted eye as we sat on the curb. Me too. She bounced eagerly. We have to do this again. Yeah, definitely. I was still huffing, out of breath. I never expected to be playing a dancing game. That's what really wore us out. I didn't suck too bad at it, but I still lost in the end. Elaine has much more experience with these games than I do. We decided to take a little stroll around town before heading home. We got complimented as being a cute couple. I was flattered, but I didn't want Elaine to get the wrong idea. She seemed to take it lightly though. I bought 2 hot dogs from a stand as we passed and handed her one. She grinned before biting into it. We ate as we toured the lovely streets. I wish I could have done this with Iwaoi, but I'm still grateful to be doing it with anyone at all. I actually felt comfortable in her presence, unlike earlier today. Oh shoot, I just remembered I have a project to finish. I think we should head home now. She said apologetically while looking guilty. It's fine, we were heading back soon anyway. I reassured her. She nodded with a thin smile. I guess she still felt bad. We turned back and reunited with her mother's amazing car. We got in, buckled up, and were on the road. All right, you're going to have to give me directions to your home. She demanded as we pulled back on the main road. All right. I agree, but I'd just do the same thing as I did with Iwaoi-chan. We eventually arrived in my neighborhood and I told her to pull up on the same curb as I did Iwaoi-chan. Thanks for today, I really enjoyed it. I said as I stepped out of the car. Sure thing, I had fun as well, so it was a win-win, no? She asked, knowing the answer. See you at school. I chortled before walking off. To my relief, she didn't ask any questions like Iwaoi-chan had. When I'd gotten back to my house, my father was knocked out from overdrinking. He does that occasionally. Why do I have to be the one with the cliché story, the drunken abusive father, and myself as a timid loser, who's fallen for a hunk on the football team? Yet my life was so much more complex than that. I would love to have a life that simple in trade for this complex, messed up excuse of one. Anyway, back on topic, I used my father's unconsciousness to successfully sneak up to my room. I was surprised when I found out that Oikoa and Elaine were going to hang out in town today. I would have loved to go, but I had football practice today, plus I would probably just end up being the third wheel anyway. Oikoa might want to be alone with Elaine too now that I think about it. Could he have a crush on her? I couldn't help but feel jealous. Sigh, why am I even thinking about this anyway? It really was an unexpected turn of events since Elaine hadn't said much to Oikoa yesterday. Even after shutting down my earlier thoughts, I couldn't help but to feel the loneliness churning in the pits of my stomach. It felt as if something was missing every time I was away from Oikoa. Why does he affect me the way he does? I really don't understand it. That reminded me, my parents want to meet him. I would never bring him here to meet my parents unless it gave me the excuse of hanging out with him. So during school I'll invite him over. Mum, I'm going to invite my friend over tomorrow, is that all right? I asked, not really caring for her answer as I head down the stairs. I would have invited him anyway. That would be wonderful, sweetie. She yelled from the kitchen in response. I guess she was still looking forward to meeting him. As I entered the kitchen I noticed my mum finished dinner, so I grabbed a plate and headed back to my room. We don't usually eat together, well I mean my parents do, but me, my brother, and my sister don't unless it's a special occasion. I scrolled through my phone checking for any notifications and searching the web. I eventually got up to brush my teeth and went to bed. When I got to school the next day I made sure to ask Koa if he wanted to come over. Oi, Koa! I yelled across the hall. He looked around trying to spot the source of my voice. He spotted me standing at the end of the hall and grew a quick smile. You free tonight? I asked as I made my way to him. No, I'm free, he announced, giving me a curious look. Wanna come over to my house later today? My parents want to meet you, I asked hopefully. His mouth widened with surprise and he nodded. I mentally fist-pumped. I really just wanted to hang out with him, alone. It always puts me in a greater mood. Of course he seems to enjoy my company as well, at least I hope that's the case. Soon enough I was bombarded with the presence of my friends. They clung to me like ornaments on a Christmas tree throughout the rest of school. Elaine, however, was spending most of her time hanging around Koa. I guess she really took a liking to him. A few classes went by and it was now lunch. Koa, are we hanging out today? She asked him as she ate her meal. I'm going over to Iwaoi-chan's later, he announced. Elaine's head immediately shot towards him, staring with an unreadable expression, then to me. Great, we can all go, she suddenly proposed, with others ferociously agreeing with her. Yeah, like hell they will. Nope, I declined, raising a hand. Why? She asked innocently. I only planned on bringing Koa over. My parents want to meet him, and if all of you came along it would make things too chaotic. I use it as an excuse. They sighed and went back to chatting and eating their food. Hold on, don't think I didn't notice. Elaine brought the attention back to Koa and me. Everyone looked at her to continue. Iwaoi-chan? She asked in a teasing tone. Koa's cheeks slowly took on a red hue as he registered the word, not like mine were much better. It's nothing. Just a joke that stuck. Everyone seemed satisfied with the answer. School eventually ended and I made my way to the parking lot, waiting for Koa. A few minutes passed as I leaned up against my car scrolling through my phone. He finally showed, looking like a lost puppy as he strolled out the building and into the parking lot. He sighed a breath of relief when he spotted me across from him. Hey! I greeted, sending him a little smile. He continued approaching silently, but his expression was enough to tell his mood, that being happy. "You excited to meet my family?" I asked as I got off the car and popped the driver door open. "Yeah." He nodded his head, opening the door to the passenger side. "Well, you shouldn't be," I warned, getting into the car and starting the engine. He shot his head my way, wearing a questioning look. "They are a little crazy," I clarify, which makes him release a breath of relief. I can't help but to crack a smile at his reaction. We drove a little while before reaching my house. I pulled into the driveway and stepped out. Koa quickly followed behind. When his eyes landed on the garden, he looked like he was in heaven. He gawked at the sight of the hedges and flower beds everywhere. "I've never seen a man this into flowers before," I teased. He looked back at me with a pout. "A man can like flowers," he retorted, folding his arms. "My mum did all of this. She's a real flower lady," I explained as we continued down the path to my house while he admired the various flowers. The yard was chaos when she had all of the workers arranging the flowers. I chuckle. "She did a good job. She must have a good sense of design," he complimented sweetly. He tensed a little as we got closer to the front door. I placed my hand on the handle of the door and slowly twisted it, fearing for my parents' reaction. "Poor Koa. Dear, Hajime is home," my mother yelled before I even set foot in the house. They hadn't spotted Koa yet since he was standing behind me. "Oh, perfect timing, your mother just finished dinner," he informed. When we arrived at Iwaoi-chan's house, I was left in awe. Their garden was absolutely beautiful. My inner self felt like frolicking through it. "I've never seen a man this into flowers before," Iwaoi-chan teased. "A man can like flowers," I educated him, justifying my reaction. He responded with a chuckle. When we finally made it up to the doorway, I felt my nerves building. From what Iwaoi-chan's been telling me, they are a little on the crazy side. I just hope they receive me well. "Dear, Hajime is home," I heard a woman speak. I assume it's his mother. "Oh, perfect timing, your mother just finished dinner," a man spoke. This was definitely his father. Iwaoi-chan just sighed and walked into the house with me following close behind. "Oh my, who's this?" the woman asked. "I told you I was bringing a friend over, this is him." "Mum, oi Koa, this is my mother Darby," Iwaoi-chan introduced quickly with hand gestures. "Please join us for dinner," Iwaoi-chan's mother insisted, grabbing hold of my hands. Sure, if that's okay." I looked between everyone, studying them for answers. Iwaoi-chan seemed happy with the idea. Darby and Iwaoi-chan's father seemed to be excited. "Oh yes. This way." She led us into the kitchen. It looked expensive with all of the smooth, bright wooden cabinets and counters spread along the walls. One average-sized dining table sat near the window of the room. Darby set the table with what I assumed was meatloaf and we gathered to eat. "So, how did you meet my son?" Darby started excitedly. "Mum, you already know the answer to that." Iwaoi-chan sighed. "I want to hear it from him," Darby said, getting a little worked up. I couldn't help but to smile at their little antics. "It's okay, Iwaoi-chan and I met at our cabin. I fell asleep on the bus and was late to the cabin, so I arrived after him," I explained before taking a bite of the delicious-looking meatloaf sitting under me. "Do you play for any sports teams at school?" was the first question Iwaoi-chan's father asked, who I found out is named Thomas. "No. I'm not that active," I answered cautiously, not wanting to disappoint him. "Not everyone plays sports, honey," Darby informed him with a bit of sass. I know, I was just curious." He pouted at her. "So what classes do you take in school?" The basics, I guess." I shrugged. I realized later that they might not know what the basics are. We discussed school a while more before turning the subject to my hobbies and interests. Let's just say they were disappointed. I'm not the most exciting person, to be honest. The conversation changed to Iwa-chan. Darby pulled a book full of his baby photos off the wall and came over to my side of the table and proudly showed them off. It really showed how much her and Thomas cared for Iwa-chan. He was groaning in frustration and embarrassment the whole time, making me chuckle. He looked cute as a baby, he still does now, to be honest. As we finished our dinner, I saw a silhouette of a person disappearing from the top of the stairs. That's odd, I didn't know anyone else was here. We were about to get up from the table when Darby suddenly announced dessert. Oh, I'm stuffed. I chuckled a little. That meatloaf really packed my stomach. I couldn't eat another bite. It tasted amazing though. Nonsense, she said, heading over to one of the counters. She brought what looked to be a pie over to the table. Even though I was packed, it still looked delicious. The flaky, creamy crust was easy on the eyes. She took a knife and cut a piece, allowing for a red gel to escape from the sides. I assume it's strawberry or cherry pie? I could almost feel my mouth watering, but at the same time my stomach was screaming for help. I was mentally groaning. Darby placed a slice on my plate followed by the others. I was too distracted by my aching stomach and the gorgeous pie that sat in front of me to hear anything that was being said around me. I took my fork and cut a bite-sized piece and slowly guided it to my mouth. It melted. It melted. I thought to myself as I slowly chewed it. The texture of the pie was unbelievable. The taste was beyond perfect, and with it brought back a rush of nostalgia. I made one of your favorites, Grandma announced, coming out of the kitchen with her backing mitts raised in the air. I knew what it was, as the whole house was captured by the amazing smell. She baked strawberry pie. I hopped off the couch and ran into the kitchen with Grandpa right behind me. She cut us slices and sat them in front of us. I didn't hesitate to dig in. I moaned, wiggling in my seat. I was begging for more as soon as I started on my first piece. Grandma and Grandpa chuckled. Mum and Dad were out on a date, so Grandma and Grandpa told them they would take care of me until they returned home. Today was a bright sunny day. Me and my grandparents played outside all day. Well, I was the one who did all the playing anyway. They just sat down watching me run around the yard. The smell of freshly cut grass from our neighbor's lawn never failed to make me happy. Grandma and Grandpa seemed to like the smell of it as well. They looked happy sitting together, smiling and laughing. That also helped to brighten my mood. Seeing other people happy made me happy. I was a cheerful boy. I continued running around the yard pretending I was a pirate terrorizing a town. During the evening, me and my father would sit on the deck of the house and watch the sunset while Mum made dinner. We'd talk about an assortment of things. He'd tell me how great of a man I would become, and how successful I would be when I grow up. Mum would come out and sit with us for a bit before we'd all head inside and eat dinner. All right, I'm heading up to my room, Iwa-chan told his parents once we stood from the table. Okay, sweetie, was all I heard her say as I was being pulled out of the room by Iwa-chan. My eyes lit up when we reached his room. His bed looked so soft and comfortable. His matching sheets and covers looked so inviting, I wanted to fall onto it. Iwa-chan did just that, sinking into the covers with a sigh of content. I'm packed, he said tiredly with a chuckle. Same. Your mum stuffed me like a horse. I giggle, watching him lying on the bed. His stomach rose as he let out a laugh. You see, that's how she is, she never takes no for an answer, he explained, frustrated. I think it's nice though, I said, gaining me an unreadable look from Iwa-chan. Yeah, tell me that after you've spent 18 years living with her, he shot back, unearthing more of my giggles. I wish I had parents like that, ones that would love me unconditionally, ones that would always be by my side and have my back. Iwa-chan pulled out his phone and started scrolling through it as usual. Come over here, he ordered, patting his bed. I tried to hide my excitement as I made my way over. Just as I sat down, music began coming from somewhere. I searched the room with my eyes, looking for the source of the sound. I noticed a couple Bluetooth speakers on both sides of his room. The song currently playing was one I'd never heard before, and let me say that I was impressed with his choice of music. To my surprise, Iwaoi-chan did something I wanted to do but didn't have the courage to. He pulled me onto his bed, laying me beside him, with a husky chuckle escaping him. I could have sworn I'd fallen into a pit of lava. My skin changed its color like an exploding volcano. It probably wasn't that noticeable in the room's dull lighting, thankfully. Since Iwaoi-chan didn't mind me being on his bed, I figured I'd just relax. I really wanted to make the most of the moment. I let myself sink into the soft covers, feeling the gentle breeze of the silent ceiling fan overhead. I closed my eyes, taking in the atmosphere. I never imagined being in Iwaoi-chan's home, let alone his bed. It felt as if my luck was finally taking a turn. Maybe I'm not as worthless as I thought, maybe it was just a point in my life that was meant to pass. I should probably take a shower, Iwaoi-chan said, snapping me out of my thoughts. He scrunched his face after taking a whiff of his underarm. I smiled. Make yourself at home, by the way, was all he said before waving and disappearing out the door. I didn't know what to do, so I stood from the bed and walked up to the door to see if he was still nearby. He wasn't. It seemed he'd already made it to the bathroom. I was hoping he'd tell me what I'm allowed to do instead of setting me free in his home. I held onto both sides of the door, releasing a small sigh. Just as I was about to turn around, something in the corner of my eye caught my attention. Someone was sitting on top of the stairs. I don't think it's either of his parents. Could it be the person from earlier? I hesitantly made my way out the door to greet them. Hi. I spoke, throwing up a small wave even though the person was faced away from me. They jumped in response and shot their head towards me. Crap, you startled me. Who are you anyways? The boy demanded a response in an upset tone. He didn't look that much younger than me, maybe only by a couple years. I'm one of Hajime's friends, I say, almost sounding like a question, while pointing towards the bathroom. Oh, of course you are. He scoffed before returning his eyes to his phone. Are you Hajime's brother? I asked after a long pause. He definitely resembled him, and they had similar habits. Clearly, he muttered. This confirmation got me curious though. Why wasn't he at dinner? Was there a reason you didn't join us for dinner? I decided to ask, taking a seat next to him on the top stair. He just looked at me like I was crazy, but I found it kind of humorous. Even though he was a bit mean and grumpy, I didn't feel threatened by him. What's with all of the questions? He sighed, turning back to his phone again. Another long moment of silence swept the room before either of us spoke again. I wasn't invited, he grumbled quietly under his breath. You weren't invited? I asked, trying to make sure I heard him correctly. That's what I said, he confirmed in a frustrated tone. Oh, why? I asked, wanting to know more about the situation even though I was probably charting nosy territory right about now. He groaned at my question, obviously becoming annoyed. We don't usually eat together, unless it's on a special occasion. My parents sometimes get Hajime to eat with them, but I'm never invited unless my sister is joining. They give him all of the attention, it's like Hajime is their favorite child. I don't know why it upsets me the way it does. But I just don't feel that important, I guess, he explained, sighing. And on top of all that, everyone at school is always clinging to him while I'm just ignored, he added. He looked pretty down. I know how he feels though. That's how I felt for the past several years of my life. I know they love all of their children. I'm sure you're more important than you think. I tried reassuring him. Why is a total stranger trying to cheer me up? Better yet, why did I tell you any of that in the first place? He said in a frustrated yet light-hearted manner. I just smiled at him and he smiled back. Now aren't you going to tell me your life story? He asked seriously, turning his burning gaze to mine. There isn't much to tell. I lie. He definitely read me like an open book cause his narrowed eyes were as thin as a blade. Yeah, right. I can see it in your eyes, he stated. No, really. I stutter, trying to convince him. I know I wasn't doing so well as my eyes were avoiding him. I sat up from the stairs and told him bye, trying to avoid the brewing conversation. All right, whatever. He raised his hands before going back to his phone. It was kind of selfish of me but I just couldn't.